Hey everyone, this is my updated cube collection video. The way this works is you click on any of the categories you see in front of you to skip to that part of the video, or you can just continue watching to watch the entire thing straight through. But once you're finished with a certain section, you can click on the annotation at the top of your screen and it will take you back to this menu.
We're going to start with the N by N by N puzzles, and to start we're going to start with 2x2s. They're both VCube 2s, and they turn very good, and they cut corners incredibly well. Now we're going to move on to 3x3s, starting with a Rubik's brand 3x3 that I have modified quite a bit. It turns better than most 3x3s, but it's so very sluggish. This is the Dodecahedron. It turns very well and cuts corners pretty good. It's probably one of my best 3x3s, but my favorite 3x3 is the MF8 Legend. It turns very fast and it's very smooth. It doesn't cut corners quite as well as the Guhong, so you have to have everything lined up. Now into 4x4, starting with the Rubik's brand. This cube is pretty bad. I really don't play with it just because it locks up a lot and it's not fun to solve. This is a Meffert's tiled 4x4. It turns better than the Rubik's brand, however it does catch a little bit, and it's still not that fun to play with. And my last 4x4 is the Diane plus MF8. It turns much better than either of my other 4x4s, and it can cut corners. However, it pops a lot, so that's a little bit annoying. Next we have the VCube 5. It turns better than the 4x4s, it cuts corners, and it's fun to play with because it doesn't take too long to solve. I do not have a 6x6, but I do have a 7x7. It turns well, however I don't solve it much just because it's so big that it's not much fun to solve. Now we're going to move on to 3x3 modifications, starting with a circle cube. All of the circles are unlocked, so they do not turn with the outer layers. It's harder to solve than a 3x3, but I didn't find it that difficult. Next we have a latch cube. It only turns in the direction of the arrows. It's very unique because it has internal bandaging. Next we have Oscar's treasure chest. Only available through the Jade Club. When it's solved, you can pop this open and put whatever you want inside. However, when it is scrambled, you cannot open it. Next, we have a bandage cube. I handmade this one. I'm very happy with the results. It looks very nice and turns very well, but it's very difficult to solve. Next, we have the Venus cube, which is cooperated between Meffert's and the HK Now store. It turns pretty well, but it can catch sometimes. Next we have the bump cube, or mirror blocks. This is actually one of my first puzzles that I ever bought, so that's pretty cool. It's fun to solve just because it's not much harder than a 3x3, but it does take a little bit more concentration. Next we have the Fisher cube, designed by Tony Fisher. It's basically just a shape mod of a 3x3, and it's not much harder than a normal 3x3. Here we have the Master Pyromorphinx, also designed by Tony Fisher. It's harder than the Fisher cube, but not much harder than a 3x3. Here is the Hexagonal Prism. I think it's one of the hardest 3x3 shape mods that I have, and it's very nice because it can make very cool patterns like the checkerboard pattern here. Next we have the Siamese cube. This cube is very special to me because it's kind of what got me into collecting. It was made for me by my girlfriend for my birthday, and so it's just special because it's kind of what started the collection, and it was given to me by my girlfriend. Next we have the fused cubes. I hand built this. This was actually my first modification, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out, and it looks very nice. Next we have the Jade Club 3x3. It's smaller than a normal 3x3, and it has these unique patterns on them. Next I have two picture cubes. This one is from Hershey Park, and this is from the Spy Museum. They're both given to me as gifts. They don't turn very well, but they look pretty cool. Next we have a gear cube designed by Oscar. The turning is pretty good and it's very easy to solve. Next is the anisotropic cube, or gear cube extreme. It is much harder to solve than the gear cube, but it's still fun and still looks pretty cool. Now we're going to move on to probably my favorite section, and that's the cuboid puzzles. Starting with the floppy cube, just a normal 3x3x1, and I kind of like this one just because it's so easy to solve that I can just hand it to any of my friends and they can solve it no problem. Next we have the 3x3x2. I'm not quite sure what brand this is, however it does turn very well and it's very fun to solve. Next we have a normal 3x3. It's in type A5. It turns pretty well, but it's not as good as my other 3x3s. Next we have the Cube Feed 3x3x4s. I have two of these, one in white and one in black. They turn very well, and they're also very fun to solve. Next is the 3x3x5. I handmade this one. I'm very happy with the results. It's very unique because it shape shifts, so this is probably one of my favorite cuboids. And lastly, for the 3x3x-N is the 3x3x6, and this one is also handmade. It turns pretty well, except the outer layers do catch a little bit. Next we have the 2x2x3. It's very easy to solve, so it's kind of fun just to play with. It does catch a little bit because it doesn't have springs. Now we have the 2x2x4. It's a Rubik's brand puzzle. It does shapeshift, so it's very fun to solve, though the turn-in's not all that great. Next I have another 2x3x3. This one is handmade. I just made it because I had all the spare parts, and it makes this very unique move that my other 2x3x3 doesn't make. Next we have the 4x4x5. It's pretty fun to solve, and the turning is alright. It's not the best turning cuboid, but it's not terrible. Next we have the 4x5x5. This one is very good. It's very fun to solve. He fixed all of the problems with the 4x4x5, and I really don't have any complaints about this one. And the last one, though it's not really a cuboid, I thought I'd include it here anyway. It is the cross cube. This is also a custom build. The outer layers are fully functional, and I'm very happy with this one. It's very fun to solve. Now we're going to move on to miscellaneous cubic puzzles, starting with the Bermuda cubes. I have 4 of these. They're very interesting because they have a different type of bandaging and they shapeshift a lot. If you guys would like to learn more about these puzzles, please watch my video about them. I go into a lot more detail than I am here. Next we have the square one. This is an MF8 square one. It turns very well, and it's not too difficult to solve. Now we have the dino cubes. These are both Smaz dino cubes, and this one here has his hollow stickers, and he signed it for me. They're very nice. They're very easy to solve, and I think this one looks very nice. I'm going to include the dino cylinder in this section, even though it's not a cubic puzzle. I thought I'd include it because it is a dino cube. This is also made by Smaz and also has his hollow stickers. Next is the gear shift, designed by Oscar and sold by Meffords. It's very unique. I definitely suggest this puzzle. It's not too difficult to solve, but it's very fun. Next we have the helicopter cube. It turns decent. Sometimes it can be hard to find the jumbling moves, but still, it's very fun to solve, and I like it. Here we have the curvy copter. I actually like this more than the helicopter cube. It turns nicer, and I think the appearance is nicer, and it's much easier to find the jumbling moves, and it turns a lot better than the helicopter cube. And finally, we have the mosaic cube. This is one of my favorite twisty puzzles. I know a lot of people complain about the turning. Mine turns alright, but it's very unique and I think it looks really nice. This next section is going to consist of both Scube and Pyraminx type puzzles, starting with a normal Scube. I just recently figured out my own solution to this, so I'm very happy about that. Next we have the Jinx Pyraminx, the Jade Club edition. It's just a normal Scube modification with the Jade Club patterns on it. And now we have a Scube Ultimate. It's not much harder than a normal Scube. All you have to do is orient these square pieces. Next we have a Rex Cube. It turns very well. However, it's a lot harder to solve than I thought it would be. I did recently find out my own solution, and it's very rewarding to solve this puzzle. Next is the face-turning octahedron. I have not solved this, but I believe it's just a modification of a Rex Cube, so I'll probably figure out how to solve this soon. Now we have the tip-turning octahedron and Mefford's Jewel puzzle. They're both tip-turning octahedrons, however this one has this extra tip, and this one is a truncated version. It's very fun to solve both of these puzzles. They're not too difficult. Now we have a normal Pyraminx. This is a Mefford's Pyraminx. I am missing a tile for it, unfortunately, but it's very easy to solve. Next we have the Volcano puzzle, also sold by Mefford's. It's kind of like a Pyraminx cross cube, so it's very interesting. I really like the appearance of this puzzle. And finally we have the Professor Pyraminx. It's a little bit harder than normal Pyraminx, I think, but it's not an impossible puzzle. It's very fun to find your own solution. This next section is going to consist of dodecahedron type puzzles, starting with the Flower Minx, and this solves like a corners only Mega Minx, and it turns pretty well, though it does sometimes catch. Next we have a Mefford's Mega Minx. It turns very well, and it solves pretty similarly to a 3x3, but it turns pretty well. Next we have the Holy Mega Minx. It doesn't turn as good, but it still looks pretty cool, and it's still fun to solve. Next we have the MF8 Gigaminx. This turns incredibly well. I heard it turns a lot better than the Cube View one. Very happy with this. However, I don't solve it often just because it takes so long to solve. Here we have Mefford's Pyraminx Crystal. It turns pretty well after breaking in, but I do really like this. It solves like a combination of a Pyraminx and a Flower Minx. Here we have MF8's Helicopter Dodecahedron. It's pretty tight, the turning, but it solves just like a Curvycopter. Next we have the Dino Dodecahedron, or Tip-Turning Star Minx. It just turns right like this, and it solves pretty much like a Dino Cube. Next we have one of my favorite dodecahedron puzzles, and that is the Face-Turning Star Minx. I know a lot of people have complained that it doesn't turn very well, but mine actually turns very well. I'm very happy with this puzzle, and it's really fun just to play with and turn. And lastly, for the dodecahedrons, we have the Alexander Star. I just recently picked this up. It was made in 1982. It's not much fun to solve, but it's definitely a collector's piece. Now we're going to move on to the Diana Gems. And here's the Gem 1. It solves just like a helicopter cube. It turns like a helicopter cube, and it jumbles like a helicopter cube. So that is the Gem 1 puzzle. Next we have the Gem 2. It turns like this, and it turns around this right here. It also jumbles right here like that. But the turning's decent. It does catch a little bit. Next we have the Gem 3. It turns around these faces and around these square faces as well. It does catch quite a bit, but other than that, it's a pretty nice puzzle. And the last die-in gem, probably my favorite, is the Gem 4. It has this deep cut here and this face cut. It doesn't turn around the squares, but it is a truncated octahedron Dinos cube, and it's very fun to solve. It's definitely one of my favorite die-in gems. Okay, so the final puzzle in my collection, it doesn't really fit in with any of the categories, so I thought I'd include it here at the end. It's the Tutt Minx. It is very unique. It's a huge puzzle, and it has these pentagonal faces and hexagonal faces. It has 32 sides. I've never solved it just because I think it's going to take forever, but it's very unique and very cool. Okay, so this has been my updated collection. I currently have 75 different twisty puzzles, so if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I will be sure to respond. I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed and liked and commented. It really means a lot, and it definitely makes me want to keep making videos, so thank you guys. So this has been my updated collection video. Thanks for watching.